Welcome back. Is the BBC like the Titanic, unable to change course? Well, that's what the Sidemen's manager has said this week. He manages the super successful YouTube channel. But Paul, he told The Guardian the BBC needs a radical change to find young audiences. Is he right?
I agree. The BBC is trying to do that. I think the difficulty for the BBC is, of course, the advocates are older. And you don't want to lose that advocacy because that really underpins the licence fee. And we know that in the last year, I think about 300,000 households have stopped paying the licence fee. So, forget what licence fee increase they're going to get from this government. If that continues, the BBC is really in deep doo-doos in about 2 or 3 years' time. So it has to convince people. And of course, those who do not pay a licence fee, choosing not to, are largely younger audiences who just don't see it as being relevant. So I absolutely agree. The BBC's got to do a lot more, not only in terms of the content it creates, but also its distribution strategy. And one of the other problems that it's got is, it puts stuff on YouTube, but it doesn't get the points for it. People don't realise it's BBC content. So they've got to work out how to get advocacy for the BBC on content that is on third-party platforms. People don't think it's BBC content.
But also is the problem that they're just shoving up bits of telly rather than making things for the YouTube audience, for people who have that as their primary bit of media consumption.
Yeah, let me say I love the BBC and I think Tim Davie is a really smart guy. But, having worked there for many years, it is so hard to change things. There are so many layers. People would rather, do what they've been doing. And when there are cuts in funding, rather than thinking, OK, this is serious, why don't we now completely re-engineer what we do? Let's rethink this. Let's do it differently. Or let's do something different, do something else. What they do is cut off limbs. They cut down Newsnight, or they cut down children's shows,
or squish things
together, which is a really lazy way of doing things. The BBC's had a reduction in income in real terms, absolutely, but it's still getting £4 billion a year, which should be enough to run, I would have thought, a decent public service broadcaster. But somehow they don't seem to manage it. They're too slow. They are not across technology properly. They're not across the content that really engages audiences.
So, Jane, if you look at Channel 4, have quite heavily leaned into YouTube more recently, Channel 4.0, doing deals with Spotify to put video content on there as well. Are they doing the right thing? And the BBC's sort of doing what you did on YouTube 5-10 years ago?
I'll slightly take issue with a couple of things Paul said, only because I think they have had $4 billion a year. Absolutely, it's a lot, but it's a 30% cut over the last 10 years. It's been a massive cut. I think what they provide in terms of universal service is enormous. There are lots of things going on. Obviously, the original thing, the Sidemen. It's true that less than half of 16 to 24-year-olds watch traditional TV of any kind, Channel 4, BBC, and that is happening across the board. Channel 4 are being more flexible, adept, they're doing things. They are quicker to move, they always have been. However, the BBC produce so much more. And I would argue, when you said, are they just putting TV programmes? What is Sidemen other than a sort of bit of a big brother for a new generation? They're not new formats. You know this more than anyone, Paul. These formats work. They're not packaging them right, maybe. Right. But the BBC produce so much.
But you talk about packaging that. I think you're completely right. A lot of it is in reinventing things that have existed in the past. But why haven't they done it? They're not idiots. They're bright people. There's good TV producers there.
Look at the audience figures. I don't want to keep going on about Traitors. But some of those shows, they punch through well into that demographic.
But are those young people listening because it's a family consumption, listening and watching? It's a bit of family consumption. So yes, they get the Traitors that way. But would a 17, 18-year-old even knew the Traitors existed had mum and dad not dragged them?
All I know is that my eldest, who has just started work, he only watches it with his girlfriend because they love it. He, however, having moved into his first flat, wasn't going to get a licence fee. And one thing I would agree with Paul, and I was shocked that a child of mine would consider not getting a licence fee. But the moment I said, but it's for, he said, I only ever watch things on my laptop. And I said, well, but it's for everything else you get. It's the news. It's the World Service. service. It's for all of those shows. And he was sort of instantly convinced. And I think the problem with the BBC is, where are their advocates within the BBC? What is going on? We need to have, every time there's a problem, every time, and we're going to talk about some of them, they're sort of always on the back foot. They're just not coming out with the right messaging to deal with either the criticism, but also to sort of say, we need the BBC more than ever against the sort of global forces of mis and disinformation. So to me, those great advantages need protecting, and sort of the own, they're not doing things right. It seems slightly to miss a trick, because I think they're doing much which is good, genuinely.
So, Paul, marketing, packaging challenge more than content?
Well, I think Jane is right. I do agree that this issue about the young people you just mentioned, I don't think people understand what they get for the license fee. I mean, in radio, we've always known that's been a problem. They think radio's free. There's no idea the license fee's paying for radio. They probably don't understand the license fee's paying for online.
And it's $500 million quid of that 4 billion. It's not insignificant.
It's not nothing. So I think the BBC has failed to really communicate value and what it delivers. And you're right, you get something like the Traitors, which, I do think actually independently young people have found that without family connection.
Absolutely love it.
They have. And it's got a very high percentage of young people watching it. So you produce something really compelling. And what's interesting about that is that show somehow cuts across all generations and classes. Yeah. It's just got a sort of a compelling nature to it, which is basically about humanity. I mean, they're stars, but they're still humans. It's got a compelling nature about it, which transcends, all of the differences that we have.
I mean, it is the response. It is the response to we live in a niched world and mainstream's dead. Or is it the thing that actually proves that? It's the exception that proves the rule.
I don't think mainstream is dead. I think because there's now so much choice, you're going to get fragmentation. That's inevitable. But you look at the sort of behaviour you get in households. Kids will watch stuff on their mobile phones, and that's their stuff. That's their influencer or their YouTube or a show they particularly like. And then they'll watch some things with their families. Big movies, big occasions, sporting events. I bet families were watching Traitors together. I bet they were.
Yeah.
I bet they were. It's about finding the shows, but also communicating the value the BBC delivers. I mean, RuPaul's Drag Race has done quite a good job for young people, but it's not enough. It needs more. And sometimes, in the past, actually, to make a different point, Radio 1, when it was delivering 19, 20 million listeners a week, that to some extent was delivering young people to the BBC. That, of course, has changed. So BBC One's reach is no longer what it was. BBC One used to capture everybody, doesn't anymore, for the point you just made. And that's really why there's a problem. BBC Three hasn't really delivered in any big way. Either it's BBC Choice or it's BBC Three.
I mean, there's a thought about platforms, and last 20 years has all been about media companies sort of reinventing themselves and creating their own platforms, success of iPlayer or similar things from other broadcasters. Has kind of that boat sailed? Is sort of should they all abandon their own platforms and just head to where audiences are?
Well, I absolutely think all media companies should head to where the audience is. But I think what we're really talking about is the value of the content that is produced. I think the mistake is to say, well, the boat has sailed, that platform's, I think actually things are changing so fast.
But if you're spending so much time supporting iPlayer or Sounds or one of those, is that time that could be best spent actually not worrying about all the infrastructure, building your own destination and just going, right, let's be more tactical about where license fee payers live?
The danger of that, which we all know with YouTube, the biggest platform in terms of content, video content, but the monetization of that platform does not go back to the content producers. So why on earth, if you're on the BBC, should you not put money and effort into at least producing iPlayer and Sounds? I mean, we could talk at length about the value of both of those titles and names. And we've argued in the past about Kangaroo and the sort of, having a sort of BritBox. But actually, I think a platform where you do own the content, the rights, I don't think that's something to just give up lightly. Now, you have to be, as we keep saying, really adaptable, because these things are changing so fast. We haven't even thought about the sort of impact of AI and the way that consumption habits are changing. So I do think don't give that up in terms of your own platform, but obviously it's about the content and making sure you have the finance and the resources put into the right things.
We were talking about advocates, and some advocates have popped up with the British Broadcasting Challenge. Have you seen this, Paul?
Yeah, I read the report, yeah.
So this is kind of Pat Young and co. Are trying to sort of put their own pressure on government to depoliticise the BBC and sort of spin it out into its own independent structure.
Well, what was interesting about the report, I thought, is I was involved with the mid-90s charter renewal when John Burt was the DG, and trying to figure out how we were going to get the licence renewed. It's amazing how some of the new ideas in here apparently are new ideas. They were the same ideas of 30 years ago. I think the interesting one to just mention is universality and funding, because those two things are linked together. And back to the platform point that Jane was making, I do agree. I mean, on one hand, you could argue that the BBC should be everywhere, universality, so therefore on any platform. Doesn't really matter what platform it's on. What matters is the content, getting the BBC brand out there, getting BBC shows out there, distribute by whatever platform you want. The problem comes to the funding, of course, doesn't it? And that is that we have the BBC Sounds, we have the BBC iPlayer, and you need a license fee to access those. And the theory being, if you want to watch Traitors, you've got to have a license fee to watch it. So how do you square that circle? There's no solution here to the funding. I mean, it talks about a rather wish-washy solution of having a tax based on households. Well, that's sort of the license fee, isn't it, really? That's exactly what the license fee is. There's no solution to the funding. And as soon as you go down any road that is not universality of use, then you can't levy the sort of money you need. And I don't disagree that the BBC could have more money. I don't have a problem with that. My worry is that when you put more money into the BBC, it doesn't necessarily produce a better result. It can produce more legacy practices, more laziness. You need, sometimes adversity produces greater creativity and greater innovation. But I mean, I would not be averse to the BBC having more money or paying more for it if it solves some of these issues.
Jane, government's never going to give up its hold on it. It's a useful thing to...
I completely agree with Paul about funding. I thought what was interesting about it, and which this government needs to do something that's sort of ambitious and, stirs the hearts of whatever constituency they're trying to. And to me, the independence of the BBC is absolutely something they should do. The first Labour government with a massive majority, which is failing to do anything really in the media space. And
if I was them, I would make it independent, because it causes so much trouble for me in government. Whichever flavour you are, just make it someone else's problem.
It's also just the right thing to do. It's supposed to be an independent, a national broadcaster that is not run by the government, and it's trust, it's sort of the sense of people's ownership is so important. And Labour stood by and watched those successive Conservative governments do terrible things. I mean, I won't mention Nadine Dorries, but, those successive, ludicrous backroom deals. And they could just make this, they've got 5 years. They could say, no, actually, we are going to agree with the thing about having proper independence, not having this sort of, terrible movement over who's going to be the chair and whether they once voted Conservative or Labour. Have a proper process like they do in America and do it now, and they'll get so many brownie. But I know it's not at the top of their agenda, but my God, what is? I mean, they're not doing much, are they? So why don't they do it? If they say AI once more, I mean, we are not going to be a country that excels globally in AI. We don't have the space. We just don't. Whereas broadcasting, the BBC, it's one of our greatest assets, or it should be, and yet they say nothing about it.
Well, creative media, 6% of GDP, huge part of the country. The one thing I did see in the report that I quite liked was an additional purpose they suggested the BBC have, which is to sort of dispel misinformation and disinformation. Yeah. It's actually, I think that'd be a good thing to a more modern thing to build into a renewal process.
I agree. Look, I agree with what Jane just said. Last sentence is completely. I want the BBC to be an independent journalistic source. I want to trust the BBC journalism. You don't know where to go. You want to know the BBC is, as impartial as it can be and does a really good job. And I really get annoyed when I see them disinvesting in news, because to me, that must be their number one purpose. And they need to be independent to do that. Yeah. So I do agree. I don't know what the answer is and how you do it, but I do think an independent BBC is absolutely essential. And I too want the BBC to survive survive and thrive.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, we need it more than ever now. And Patricia Hidalgo, you know, made this point about, you know, American stuff on YouTube. Well, yeah, I get her point, but I mean, that's really her arguing for bigger budgets. But she's right. I do think that our culture and the nature of the UK should be reflected back to itself.
This was the CBBC boss who was saying that it's important for the BBC to create this material because a lot of UK kids are consuming American content.
Yeah, and I think she has a point. I mean, that point was made 30, 40 years ago when the Hollywood, you know, kids channels came in with Nickelodeon, Disney and Cartoon Network, but it's still relevant today. So I agree. Strong, well-funded, independent BBC producing quality. I think it might need to think about its purpose. I mean, you know, it does seem to want to put tanks on every single lawn. You know, maybe some lawns should be left BBC free and really do the things it does superbly.
Okay, just before we go to the break, we were talking about Traitors earlier. So in Canada, they put up the final before it was here on the streaming service and quickly pulled it. I mean, Paul, this is one of the challenges of syndication and distribution. Great to get it out there. I think Australia are taking Celebrity Traitors pretty much nearly live as well. But it does mean you don't have the control.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the challenges. It doesn't happen too often. I mean, God knows who did this and why they did it, but they pulled it quickly. I've just basically kept my head down today and not looked at websites, you know, tried not to talk to too many people because I want to watch it tonight.
But that's the power of the format. There's very rarely, you know, the number of people where you say, you know, got to be back benign because it's on. And at the beginning, I think there was a sort of, you can always watch it on catch up, which I did. And then I saw a newspaper headline about Tom Daley and it completely spoilt it. So, you know, so desperate not to hear or see anything that could make me realise
linear. It's the future. Right,
fast channels.
Live. It's live entertainment, isn't it? Basically,
yeah, it's back to the old days, isn't it? Yeah.
What to call it, TV.
Okay, when we return, why the Times has been burnt badly by the New York election. See you in a minute. Of course, we in the Media Club are moving confidently forward in this fragmented media landscape, thanks in no small part to Podshop Studios, where we record each week. They've just opened 4 brand new super stylish studios in Shoreditch. Each one has its own distinct look and feel. If you are watching this, you'll see we're in a sort of lovely library, and you'll see that our guests are coordinated in blue today. It's amazing. You can check it out on YouTube or on the Podshop website. That's podshoponline.co.uk, all professionally designed and fully equipped for broadcast quality video recording. And as a Media Club listener, you get 25% off your first booking. Just use the code Media Club at podshoponline.co.uk. That's podshoponline.co.uk.
Hello Media Club listeners, Patrick here from Podcast Discovery, the podcast marketing company, where this week we've been thinking about social media. Very few are completely happy with what they're doing there, but no one's quite sure what it is they need to change. This week, we spent an entire day with one of our clients, going through each and every aspect of their social presence and talking through best practices for all of their podcasts. To find out what we could do for your network, head to podcastdiscovery.com. That's podcastdiscovery.com.
Welcome back. Here's some stories we've been talking about in the club this week. Netflix is to license video podcasts from US radio giant iHeartMedia on condition that it removes its content elsewhere, just like those Spotify shows are coming off YouTube for a similar deal. Will fans of the shows be happy with these limitations? I guess we'll see. Employees at News UK had quite a shock recently when they were told that their wages will soon be paid in arrears, meaning paychecks get paused for a month. Worth a read of this week's Street of Shame in Private Eye if you want all the details. And the Times has described falling for its second hoax in 30 days as humiliating for the paper. According to Press Gazette, their associate editor Ian Brunskill wrote to staff to say that we should have been on our guard. We should have tried much harder to speak to the people concerned. If that's not possible, why not? Links to all of our stories are available on our weekly Substack. Sign up now at themediaclub.com. It's free, and you'll also get our weekly briefed newsletter where we review all of the media podcasts of the week. Sign up for free at themediaclub.com. Jane and Paul are still with me. Jane, the Times haven't had a great month, have they, with these two problems?
No, the Bill de Blasio thing was sort of, you can imagine as a reporter? I mean, first of all, obviously, it was a fake. We thought it was a prank, rather, that somebody had called and pretended to be Bill de Blasio, who is actually a supporter of Zohran Mamdani, and obviously great story. Then it emerges that actually what happens is the reporter from the Times calls a Bill de Blasio, who is some guy in New Jersey, I think, and basically starts talking about what he thinks about Mamdani.
And he doesn't lie, but he plays along.
But also at no point do they say, and I think as journalists you do sort of go, well, but in your time as a former governor. And at no point apparently was this apparent that they had never been in politics. It was got nothing to do with actual Democratic Party in New York. Anyway, writes the story, which was instantly debunked by the real actual former governor de Blasio, who said, I love Mamdani and I'm a big fan. This is a lie. Times calls it, huge egg on face. And horrible sort of mistake.
I think also the email address was like billdeblasio@gmail.com as well, that they've been conversing with as well, that maybe was the giveaway. And obviously that was the second one. The first one was something that quite a few journalists and titles have fallen for, which is sort of fake AI spokespeople, PR created folk. Press Gazette's done some great work on
I was going to say,
these.
Press Gazette has really led the way on doing some of the stuff around this. It's been brilliant, actually.
Actually, I think that's a modern journalistic challenge to, this is a new thing you have to learn that you'll be getting into your inbox.
But I think of the sort of, if you look at those charts about, the sort of number of people in PR, the number of people as journalists, look at the numbers at Reach, for example. So few actual journalists doing the work under such time pressure. Then you put in AI, where the ability of machinery to fake people, statements, voices, they're trying to sort of withstand that is going to be harder and harder.
And the wider campaign against the New York mayor-elect now, it's been pretty hostile from the New York press, hasn't it?
I was almost tempted to put Mamdani as my person of the week, because I think he's played a blinder when it comes to the media. He's obviously very charismatic. There's an incredibly positive profile in Vanity Fair. I don't know if you read it. The attacks on him, which are now only going to get worse, the amount of money that has gone against his campaign from Democratic supporters, a whole array of them. And yet somehow he is reaching. I was in New York at the weekend, came back before he was elected. But the placards along the marathon route in New York, his support is astonishing. There was one Cuomo placard, hundreds for Mamdani. He has a real sort of get out. Now, it's going to get harder from now on. He's going to be in office. But I think his management of the media, which is to be basically play against them, do his own thing, always, he does the Trump, doesn't he? He says, I'm going to ignore the media coverage. The New York Times was very anti at the beginning. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to do my own things.
Jane, a couple of things since you last on the show. You're now a member of the Scott Trust. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it strange to sort of not swap sides, but you were used to working with the staff and now you're working with the bosses?
It's actually marvellous. I can't tell you how happy I am. From the minute I sort of went in, and the head of security, obviously I was there for 18 years on the staff, and gave me a hug, and it just felt like coming home. It's what I said about the BBC, I feel like about the Guardian. We need independent global media operators that aren't owned by people. There's a place for that. But, I want the Guardian to survive and thrive. And I think it's in a good place, and anything I can do to help, basically.
And also you had your book, You May Never See Us Again, The Barclay Dynasty, a story of survival, secrecy and succession.
What a story that's
available now. That story never stops.
Oh, never ending, the Telegraph Sale.
The Telegraph, now it's the paper are arguing with their future owners.
Can somebody just do this as an extended drama sort of series? 'Cause it's just amazing. Now they're having, so Charles Moore's gone back into the paper to talk about them. The pressure coming from Jerry Cardinale, after 2 years, the closest we're getting to an actual buyer. There's a deep upset on the newspaper floor. But on the other hand, there seems to be no other option. Is Lisa
I don't think it
Nandy...
seems like I don't think it's like Redbird's preferred option to sort of own it themselves. That was never really the plan either.
Never wanted to, but we are where we are, 2 and a bit years on, with Abu Dhabi having put up all that money and trying to get some of it back. And, we're now in this position again where 2.5 years after it was seized from the Barclay brothers for his enormous debts, the Telegraph is yet again in a situation where it seems to be about to be, there's going to be debt loaded on it again. Not entirely clear what's going to happen. But the sort of interregnum hasn't been entirely happy for anyone, really. Is
it sensible to argue with the new bosses? Like, what do they think the opportunity is? Do they think there's another white knight to come and save them?
Good question. Because you would think if there was a white knight, they would have come up before now.
One of the 17 other times to buy it.
Yeah. Although, I suppose as journalists, you also can't think, well, what's the point of that? Because if you think this isn't the right thing, something needs to happen, then you probably do go, you do go public with it, which is obviously what they have done. The ball's in the court of Lisa Nandy, who... the last time I wrote about it a few weeks ago. I mean, this has been going on for such a long time. But I wrote a few weeks ago about, no one, the Labour Party don't really care what happens to Telegraph. No. In fact, it was Tony Blair who allowed the Barclays to buy it without any public interest inquiry whatsoever in 2004. Probably going to happen again, although it's tricky because it's, we've had the Foreign State Interference Act over the amount of money that can be put in by whether Abu Dhabi or China. So there is public interest, and I think there are elements of this.
Is there public interest? I mean, there's a lot of interest from the right, who see it as a right-wing organ, an important one, and the government has sort of bent over backwards to change the rules and sort of do what everybody's wanted, and now it's basically stuck making another decision because the game's changed again.
I mean, it's a really good question because you think of things like the power of social media, so X and formerly known as Twitter, and the power that had in terms of governing debate. Obviously, it's a much more fragmented environment. However, why do very rich people want to own newspaper titles? It is not to make money. It is to influence decisions and public opinion. And so that is a matter of public interest, I think. So transparency is important. Of course, we're going to have media owners. We always have. They've always had an involvement of some kind. But having transparency, having editorial standards, those things do matter, because otherwise we might as well just all give up and be on X. And what a terrible place to be, frankly.
That is true.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
OK, just enough time for the Audio Network Media Quiz. Strap in. Let's see how much attention our guests have been paying to the media news this week. This week's quiz, it's called Oh, Just Glow Up. 3 media stories connected by one theme and then shoehorned into the format of an existing media property. This time we're doing 3 stories in the style of a makeover show like Queer Eye or Glow Up. And once again, Alex at Audio Network has bravely taken the brief and created a playlist of music to score today's game. It's the best of 3. Buzz in with your names if you know the story. So Paul, you will say
Paul.
And Jane, you will say
Jane.
Let's play.
Think about that.
No, is that me buzzing in?
Yes.
It's high tech here,
Yes. Let's play Oh, Just Glow Up. Fun fact, that music's actually what's used on the BBC show Glow Up. Just throwing that in on behalf of our sponsors. Right, question number 1. Harry is worried he's starting to show his age. So what will our team of cosmetic experts have in mind? How about a 60-piece orchestra, a 200-strong cast, and a lead time of 2.5 years? It'll make your skin feel 10 years old again.
Oh, is this Jane?
Yes, Jane.
It is me. Is this the Audible Harry Potter new recording
yes,
thing?
That's correct. Audible are launching a full cast production of all of the Harry Potter books. Huge cast, millions of words to go through. I mean, Paul, they've sort of got in before the HBO reboot.
They have. And what's interesting is they've set some very high watermarks. They're saying they want to exceed the 1.8 billion they've achieved before. I think it's going to be really interesting because audiobooks are growing, aren't they? They're growing in popularity, largely narrated. This is a full cast, full voice recording. If this works, I think this recipe is going to be copied by many people.
And also, it lasts kind of forever, really. It's a great evergreen property for Audible.
I'll be listening to it.
Okay, point number 1 to Jane. Question number 2. We need a fitting tribute to fallen journalists. Something that looks great, inspires, and pays tribute in equal measure.
Me again. Shall I do Jane? Because I'm involved
Say
in this
it
very
strongly.
slightly. Jane.
Jane, yes.
Well, I don't know if I like competitions like this.
You're doing very well.
I like a debate. Anyway, this is this really exciting plan for a sculpture in the National Arboretum for journalists.
That's in Staffordshire.
In Staffordshire. For journalists killed in conflict or in the sort of line of duty, basically. And so they've launched the competition. The deadline is for a new sculpture. To honour journalists. They've got some money, but they need some more to sort of finish it off. January the 9th is the deadline. And basically, journalists are one of the few professions without a memorial. And, you know, this of all years, the last thing I will say is that this year I've been thinking a lot about more journalists killed than ever before. You know, Gaza, literally some of them killed with impunity live on air. So it just feels like, you know, it's a really sort of a moment at least to mark it. And this is a way to do it.
I think it's going to be a complimentary sculpture in St Bride's as well.
Please,
yeah. Okay, one more to go. We have this footage of the president. It's baggy and needs a nip tuck.
Paul.
Yes.
So this is the BBC being accused of editing Trump in such a way as to give the impression that he was advocating violence, the assault on Capitol Hill. And that he actually, in the middle of his speech, said, peaceful demonstration, make your voices heard. And this is a former advisor to BBC editorial policy who has said the BBC have misedited it to misrepresent Donald Trump. Yeah,
and back to the Telegraph, a kind of Telegraph splash. I mean, I sort of read this and my sort of initial thought was it's just a sort of standard Telegraph sort of slag off the BBC job. And when you sort of dig into it, obviously there is some element of truth, but do you think they were describing something that wasn't true? Was it just an edit to make work in the programme?
I mean, I like you at the beginning thought, this is just, you know, having a go at the BBC or something. But when you then read the bit in the middle, as Paul said, it does absolutely. The point is that changes the meaning, but we know from all the inquiries that actually he did encourage, incite people to do that. So
but if at the time he said that in the speech, it's misrepresenting the speech, even if he did indeed. I mean, the thing was, it was a very long speech too, because they said it's an hour difference. So it sounds like maybe someone was in a hurry.
Yeah. Is it like the Queengate thing?
I think it might be.
Well, like most things, more cock up than conspiracy.
Yes.
Congratulations, Jane. 2 points to 1. Good win.
But what's the prize?
What's the prize? The prize this week, well, maybe we need to make the quiz its own independent analysed structure so we can be fair each time. You can lead that process as,
I didn't realise it was
as the
going to
prize.
I'm afraid it's more work to win, you see.
I think the prize should be next time we do this, we have a Christmas glass of wine or something.
Well, that would make it worth competing, wouldn't it?
Exactly,
you work on that?
See, the guests want riders now.
We do,
This is the challenge.
And I want my trailer at the back, please.
My thank you to Paul and Jane, and also thanks again to Alex from Audio Network for supplying today's music. Remember, Audio Network can do this for you as well. Just head to audionetwork.com and click the link on the show notes. Right, before we go, where can people keep up with your work? Where are you posting at the moment, Paul?
Oh, everywhere, really. I'm platform neutral. LinkedIn is probably best.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think I was always really sniffy about LinkedIn, and now I don't really use X. I don't really use Blue Sky, and I'm not actually posting anywhere near as much. Are you two?
I'm finding LinkedIn is sadly becoming
You've been doing a lot recently.
A core destination.
But do you do it? So what I struggle with is LinkedIn is that sort of, what you're doing with that. Whereas Twitter used to be, I'm really enjoying watching Celebrity Traitor. Where did you do that?
I think LinkedIn's obviously you can plug yourself, and we all should plug ourselves. We shouldn't be embarrassed by that.
It's not very British.
But also, I think it's a good place to say good stuff you've seen other people do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I tend to keep it more business and less personal.
But where do you do the I'm watching Celebrity Traitors WhatsApp?
I don't do it. I do it on the media pod.
Yes, do it on the show.
Here.
And Jane, journalism-wise, so even though you've sort of poacher turned gamekeeper or the other way around, still writing for The Guardian as well, though?
Yes, yeah. I'm still writing about the media. Doing bits and pieces all over.
Great, thank you both. Thank you for listening and watching. My name's Matt Deegan, the producer was Matt Hill. It was a Rethink audio production with video support from Podcast Discovery. I'll see you next week.